Hello, guys. What is happening? And welcome to this stream. So, as you all know on this channel, I am not a politics guy. I don't like getting into politics. And in fact, I am sick and tired of everything that is going on right now. But I just think it's kind of my duty to report on this kind of stuff because it is just getting to the point of insanity that we need as much reporting on this as possible. So we're going to be digging in to an article about this Emergencies Act, and then we're going to go through what that exactly means and what are the next steps, because I think this is a going to be a historic thing in the future. People are going to look back and that Trudeau, Trudeau is done. He's totally done now. And they're going to look back. I mean, he's ruined him and his family's life. And that's the sad thing, is he's so selfish that he's ruined his family's life. Because if you think about how they're going to have to live after this, after his term finishes and after he's done, it's just going to be absolutely terrible. So anyway, we're going to dig into this. Let me share my screen. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. All right. So let's, what is the Emergency Act? And this article is coming from the BBC. So it's outside Canada. I like that. The BBC is actually the UK state propaganda network, but for world reporting, they're pretty unbiased. The Emergencies Act, passed in 1988, bestows the government with added powers in times of national crisis. Does this feel like a national crisis? Now, I want to hit that home to you, because national, it's more of a, even if it was a crisis, it's more of a provincial one. There's nothing, as far as I know, going on in BC, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, or however you say, I probably butchered that, or the territories. So national, I don't really think so. I think that's arguable. The situation must meet a high bar, specifically an urgent and critical situation that seriously endangers the lives, health, or safety of Canadians. Now, just think about that for a second, because that is where I'm kind of lost for words when I read that, because I was like, really? Because this is not an urgent, critical situation that endangers lives or the health and safety of Canadians. Anybody who's been to the protest in Ottawa, seen the many, many videos of the protest, knows that this is not a thing which is endangering lives. That is a total, so it's not. So anyway, let's read on, otherwise we'll be here all night. And cabinet may only invoke the legislation if the emergency cannot be addressed by any existing federal law, and if it exceeds the capacity of the provinces to handle effectively. Okay. The Emergency Act outlines 4 different types of emergencies: public welfare emergencies, public order emergencies, international emergencies, war emergencies. If the legislation is invoked this week, which it has been, it will likely be under the public order category. Again, the criteria is strict. Lawful protests do not qualify. Can you believe that? Lawful protests do not qualify. So I think he's done now. He's throwing his weight around because he came out with such strong comments at the start condemning these people who are Canadians, whatever you want to call them, they're Canadians. And he came out and condemned them, and you can't backtrack. It's very hard to backtrack when you make statements like that. So he Sorry about that, guys. My battery went dead. Can you? Oh, I got the wrong camera. Let's go there. Let's go there. That's better now. Okay, sorry about that. My battery went dead on my camera. So, but I got it sorted. I got 3 batteries. They make the batteries so tiny. But anyway, where were we? Okay, so we just done that. Instead, the situation must be considered a threat to the security of Canada as defined by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service Act. This law outlines 4 possible scenarios: espionage or sabotage, foreign influenced activities, threats or use of serious violence for political, religious, or ideological objectives, cover unlawful acts intended to undermine or overthrow the constitutionally established government. Okay, so that's really interesting, isn't it? Because right there, it mentions about foreign influenced activities. And I wonder if that's why the propaganda, and I'm just going to call it the state media now, because it seems like we're turning a page in history here and the Simpsons were right and we're heading for communism, folks. But if you haven't seen the short I just did on that, go watch it because you'll just be shocked. But well, you'll laugh anyway. But the threats or use of acts such as serious violence for political, religious, or ideological objectives, no way. So pretty much all of them, it doesn't conform. So then if we look here, it says it is so far unclear which scenario Mr. Trudeau would rely on to justify the use of the Emergency Act. None of these 4 scenarios have been clearly present in Ontario. So yeah, there you go. Like, how is he? I have no idea how he's going to get around this. I don't know, because I'm not too in depth in politics, whether he has enough power between him and the even more communist lefty NDP, whether they would hold enough to get this act through. Because I know the bloc, even the bloc in Quebec, is opposing this. So, and the Conservatives certainly aren't going to vote for it. And if this fails to get through, which we'll go on to in a minute, then that means he's pretty much done. So we'll go into the nitty gritty of this and what it actually means in a minute. On Monday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he would support the federal government and any proposals that they have to bring law and order back to our province. If you haven't seen that short I did of Doug Ford, you should watch that one as well, because like the reporter even questioned him and he got really on the defense about it because he was obviously personally offended because there were photos that emerged of him at his cottage snowmobiling, having fun, whatever. It's not illegal for him to do that, obviously. But he was saying that Ottawa was under a state of siege whilst he just swans off to his cottage and just literally rolls around. And the funny thing is, his first response to that question was to lie, like all these politicians. But then they asked him again, and then he finally admitted. But his first response was to lie, and I have it encapsulated in that little short that you can go and watch. So the Premier of Quebec said that he wouldn't see the act applied to his province. I know Alberta is also saying that they're not going to invoke the act, even with the Coots blockade and everything that's going on. So Trudeau is really going to look like a fool, isn't he, when it's only Ontario and he's just declared this national act. Really, the best case scenario out of this is that it gets voted down in Parliament. And Trudeau, that would be like a vote of no confidence then. He would have to step down, you would think. But he is such a dictator. He's becoming such a dictator, and it's obvious his ego, that who knows what lengths he will go to. But he's going to go down as one of the worst leaders, if not the worst leader, in Canadian history. What a thing to do. The audio's been cutting in and out. Okay. I don't know why that is. Hold on. We got audio issues apparently. Let me fix that. You know what? I'll just switch to the headphones. I know they'll work. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, I need my thing. So much for technology. Bear with me. Okay, let me test the audio. Okay, so you should be able to hear me better now, because this is just plugged straight in. Greg, let me know if you can hear me there in the chat, if it's not cutting in and out. Anyway, the government could bar travel to or from specific areas from Parliament Hill or major border crossings. For example, it could order the evacuation of people and personal property from certain areas, possibly using this power to clear out congested areas of protesters. And it could direct individuals and companies to render essential services, perhaps ordering tow truck companies to lend their services and clear the roads of demonstrators and their vehicles. That is insanity. Clear the road of demonstrators and their vehicles. Private tow truck companies, force them. And who is on the wrong side of history here? Like, that is dictatorship 101 when you are saying you do this, you do that. And he's trying to cling to any string of an ounce of power that he can possibly cling to. This is interesting as well. But while Mr. Trudeau's government may soon be granted an almost carte blanche to respond to the protests, there is no indication the Prime Minister will also seek military intervention. While Mr. Trudeau has said everything is on the table, he has maintained that the military involvement would be a last resort. So he hasn't let's just seriously think about that for a couple of seconds. The military, which is tiny in Canada anyway. It's laughable, to be honest. But anyway, using the military against your own citizens. And, you know, the fact is, guys, whichever side, even if you don't support the protests, that aside, he hasn't negotiated at all with these people in Ottawa. In fact, the people in Ottawa have gone out of their way to make it easy for the government to sit down with them. And they even reached some sort of an agreement with the city of Ottawa to move the trucks and stuff. So they want to negotiate. The Windsor protest is an example of that. They are law abiding. And it kind of reminds me of the Russia thing that's going on right now. It's like a big game. It's like the US is they're trying to warmonger and drum up, and they're trying to invoke an attack. That's what the US really wants. The US wants Russia to attack the Ukraine because that will boost Biden in the polls, because these politicians are psychopaths, as we're seeing right here in Canada, and will do whatever it takes to cling on to some of that power. And that crazy witch and the potion master need to get out of here. Oh, God. I was thinking of Snape's sister, Professor Snape out of Harry Potter. Bellatrix Lestrange is Freeland, and Professor Snape is Trudeau. God, it's just insane. We are a long way from having to call in the military I don't believe a word he says because he just does U-turns. So anyway, we'll whiz through this quickly. Has the act ever been used before? Because this is really interesting, guys. No, the Emergency Act has never been applied. The law was considered in the early days of the pandemic under the public welfare category, but was ultimately ruled unnecessary. Former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, that's Justin Trudeau's father, it even says that, did invoke the predecessor of the act, then called the War Measures Act. The elder, Mr. Trudeau, used this earlier law in 1970, funny because 1970s was rapid high inflation and it is right now as well, to suspend civil liberties and send in armed forces to respond to the political kidnappings of a British diplomat and a Quebec politician by homegrown terrorists known as the Front de Libération du Québec. Army tanks and more than 1,000 troops from Canada were called in to support police in Quebec, ushering comparisons to a police state. So he like father, like son. What can you really say? But I mean, I don't even believe. I don't know the context of that, so I don't know. If anybody knows, put it in the chat about this Front de Libération du Québec and what that was about. Was it really necessary back then? It sounds like it because homegrown terrorists. But then again, he's been comparing these people because they have to vilify these people in order to justify themselves. And it's hard to tell whether they are severely misled or just inherently stupid because, it just doesn't make sense. But it seems like Pierre Trudeau had a bit of an ego as well because pressed by reporters about how far he would go in response to the crisis, Pierre Trudeau responded with his now infamous phrase, "Just watch me." Sounds like Trudeau. Okay. All right. So let's what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch this now over to another article which really goes into some detail about what's going on and gives us some information that we all need to see so that we're more educated on what's going on. And if you haven't done so already, guys, when you are looking at this Biden thing that's going on, by the way, the war, the Russia war mongering and everything like that. I posted a tweet about this, but basically there was a video on Russia Today, which is like a state news network owned by Russians, and also NBC, which is a state-owned news network by the Americans. And I want you to compare those videos. So you can go to my Twitter, compare those videos. Market Mania CA is the handle. But the thing is, look at those videos and then tell me which one seems more plausible. You're just going to be absolutely shocked, I'm telling you. Okay. Process nerd, PM to invoke the Emergency Act. What's next? Okay. So I really should have gone through this and highlighted this because there was a lot. But anyway, it hasn't officially happened yet. Well, it has now. Okay, so for starters, a quick programming note to keep this turning into a novella length treaty. Oh, it didn't work. On the law itself, we're skipping over everything that happens before an emergency can be formally declared, other than to note the government doesn't need the go-ahead from Parliament before doing so, or indeed from provincial premiers, if the effect of the order would extend to more than one province. In the event that the use would be confined to one province, however, the federal government has to wait for the relevant premier to indicate that it exceeds the capacity or authority of the province to deal with it. So Doug Ford has already done that. So that's already been done. Once the declaration has been officially proclaimed, the government has 7 sitting days to present parliamentarians with what the Act describes as a motion for confirmation of a declaration of emergency. Now, this will be really interesting because when this comes through, if the NDP support that, then, you know, they're going to lose a lot of, well, would they lose a lot of support? I don't know, because I suppose the lefties have to vote for somebody. So if they're going to vote for somebody and they can't vote for the Liberals, probably the NDP. So I don't know. But is the NDP going to want to put their reputation on the line for this? That's the thing, because this is not a small thing. This is a big thing. So it must be signed by a minister and include an explanation of the reasons for issuing the declaration, as well as a report on any consultation with the lieutenant governors in council of the province with respect to the declaration. It also has to be tabled in both the House of Commons and the Senate, even if it means recalling members or of one or both chambers from an extended recess or prorogation, depending on the schedule that could be required in this case, because the Senate isn't sitting this week while MPs are rising for a week-long break on Friday. Debate on the motion starts on the next sitting day, and according to the terms of the Act, will continue without interruption until such time as the House is ready for the question. At this point, the Speaker shall forthwith, without further debate or amendment, put every question necessary for the disposition of the motion. While the Act doesn't limit the length of those debates, the government could, at least in theory, attempt to invoke closure that would require the support of at least one other party, however, which might be difficult to secure given the unprecedented nature of such a move. And I agree with that. I even think that a lot of Liberals are going to struggle to side with Trudeau on this one, because if you look at the Act and what's going on, you know, it just doesn't make sense. If the motion to confirm the declaration is adopted by both the House and the Senate, it remains in place for the 30 days provided under the Act, at which point it will automatically expire if not extended, which also requires the approval of Parliament to proceed. The reason I wanted to bring this all up, guys, was because the way the media was reporting this was like it was a done deal. And like, essentially, it's a done deal. The Act's going to be invoked. They have all the power, end of. And it's not. It's actually going to have to go to the House of Commons. They're going to have to vote on this. So the thing is, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I know the Conservatives aren't going to support it. The Bloc's not going to support it. So it's really a case of, is the NDP going to support it? And if they support it, and they're the ones that are holding the balance of power, essentially, it's tricky to decide. It's 50-50 whether they would or they wouldn't. Jagmeet, again, very lefty politician, global elitist type guy. He has been caught out multiple times not adhering to the guidelines that the government has put out, and he can't be trusted, just like Justin Trudeau. It's just a joke, really. It also has to be the government we did that. It also has to be tabled in both the House of Commons and the Senate, even if it means recalling members of one of the we did that. Debate of the motion, let me bring this up higher. Debate of the motion starts on the next sitting day, and according to the terms of the Act, will continue without interruption until such house. Yeah, we did that. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. This is why I highlight stuff. This is just like a wall of text to me. While the Act doesn't limit the length, we did that. If the motion declaration house remains, we did that. Okay, there are additional provisions to ensure continuing parliamentary oversight, including the creation of a parliamentary review committee, which must include at least one member of the House of Commons from each party that has recognised membership of 12 or more persons in that House, and at least one senator from each party in the Senate that is represented on the committee by a member in the House of Commons. So that's going to be your bloc, your NDP, Liberals and Conservative, all four, because I think they all have over 12. So the Greens and whoever else aren't going to be on that. Until this particular parliamentary configuration, that would mean at least one seat for each of the four recognised parties. Oh, yeah, it even says just what I said. In any case, all committee members, as well as research and support staff, are required to take an oath of secrecy and can only meet behind closed doors. It also has reporting requirements at least once every 60 days while the declaration is active, as well as after any major status change, including revocation, extension and expiration. So the funny thing is, guys, this act, it sounds like something that should be invoked if there was a civil war, not if there's a protest at Parliament Hill, which the government is refusing to cooperate with in any way. It's not like they've gone through negotiations and they've got to a point now where negotiations have broken down and failed. So now they need to there's no justification for that. They haven't even got to that point. And what has become inherently obvious is because of what's happened with the city of Ottawa and the deal that's been done, that proves that they are willing to negotiate. So there's no getting away from this for Mr. Trudeau. He was even questioned about it when he invoked this thing. But he looks like a troubled character now. He looks really, really troubled. And it's not good for him. I shouldn't. Okay. Finally, what if the vote or any subsequent vote on extending, amending, or revoking the order goes the other way? This is so important. The Act reads, if a motion for confirmation of a declaration of emergency is negatively by either, that doesn't make sense, is negatively by either House of Parliament, the declaration, to the extent that it has not been previously expired or been revoked, is revoked effective on the day of the negative vote, and no further action under this section need to be taken in order for the House with respect to the motion. Given the government's minority status, listen to this part, it's hard to imagine how a defeat in the House of Commons wouldn't be viewed as a de facto of non-confidence, which would likely trigger an election. It's not clear if that would be the case if the Senate pulled the plug on the order, however. So there is a lot going on there at that end part of this, whatever it is on iPolitics. But it basically is saying that if this doesn't go through, then it's game over for him. But I don't really know what that means in Canada, because in the UK, if there's a vote of no confidence, the Prime Minister can just be replaced with some other pinhead, and the party can carry on. I don't know if that triggers an election here in Canada. I don't know that far. But anyway, guys, it is just absolute insanity, the lengths that the government is willing to go to. And I just feel what other lengths they're going to go to, because it's doing this to your own citizens is one thing. And I'll tell you something. Let's get off this. When I went to the Freedom March on the weekend there, you know, when we were marching along, it was one of the most incredible experiences and things that I've seen in my life. If you haven't seen that live stream, go watch it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It'll be just like you were there because you were all there with me. You're on the camera. And the funny thing was there was 2 people who acted negatively to the protest, just 2 people. And we passed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people videoing us, waving, like just absolutely just cheering support. So the support, it was like you were in a, what do they call those things where you go down the middle of the street and, I forget what they call them. Not a carnival. I'm forgetting the word. But the just 2 people. One guy, he flipped us off. He was just putting his middle finger up at all of us. And the other guy, who was on his apartment balcony, was screaming down at everybody, bunch of racists. And the thing is, you can't get angry with these people because it's not worth it, for one. But the other thing is, most of them are extremely misled. You have to remember that. They're not like us. They don't look on both sides of the argument. All they see is the one side. And if you look at just that one side and you really believe it, then yeah, we are being demonized by the government, by mainstream media, everything like that. But the thing that I found that was just terrible was he was yelling this as kids were walking past with the megaphone, saying about freedom and liberty. Freedom and liberty, if that becomes racist, then we have real problems. Okay. So, and the woke culture has to end, because this is just absolute insanity now. In an effort to become not racist, they are becoming racist, very racist. And I've seen this happen with the BBC, funnily enough, because I nearly actually became working on the back end for the BBC, doing like where they go out in the vans and then they film the people back in England. And it was interesting because there was 100 of us for that job, and the BBC, being a woke organization that it is, there was 100 of us. There was one girl, one woman there. And I actually teamed up with her and did the exercise because nobody wanted to team up with her. And I teamed up with her and we did some of the exercises because it was like a group interview. And afterwards, I was like, I wonder who they took on, because there was only like a couple of places. But I was like, for sure, she's getting that. She's in the door, whatever she does in the interview. And I found out afterwards she did get the job. And that just kind of shows you that in an effort to not be sexist, they are being sexist now. And the thing is, if I own a business, then if I have 10 candidates who want to come and trade for me, I do not give a damn whether they are men or women. You're going to look for the best person with the best ROI, return on investment. And to think that people sit there and they go, oh, she is fantastic, but you know what I'm going to do? She's a woman, so she's gone, is just absolutely ludicrous. But again, we're now beginning to see in real time that they use these things to divide, to inflict, to use more power onto the citizens. So it is just absolutely insane. I have never, ever been in a situation. I said to Jess, I said, if there is a war in Russia, then we're just going to go to Mexico. We're just going to pack it all up and get the hell out of here, because I just want to be far away from these Western countries that are playing war games right now, and they're trying to invoke war because Boris Johnson is a loser politician, just like President Biden. Both of them are complete losers. Both of them are so far down in the polls. And going to war, unfortunately, creates a rise in the polls. It's been proven before. Just look at George Bush and is an example of that with Iraq. And that was, again, a war that was created out of nothing, a war that loads of Americans died in that they shouldn't have. And it would be the same thing in Russia. It would be lots of Americans, British, Canadians dying just for the sake of politics. And that is really the most horrible thing about this whole thing. So, but anyway, it's just absolutely holy. We got 38 people on here right now. I think that's a new record. But this whole thing about the Emergency Act is disgusting to me, and the blood is going to be on Justin Trudeau's hand. He's trying to incite violence. He's been trying to do this the whole time, make them out to be demons, demonize them, try and inflict, he probably planted people there as well to create trouble. There's been different instances that have been videotaped of people there with Confederate flags completely covered so you can't see their identity. So if you can't see their identity, why would they want to cover themselves up completely? The one guy I saw was wearing plaster all around his face. Like, it didn't make any sense. So the chances are that was just somebody who was put there by the government, so then they could photograph it and go, hey, look at this, because this is exactly what communists or dictatorships, it's not really communism. That's not really accurate, but I do refer to it a lot as communism, but that's not really accurate. It's a dictatorship. That's what it is. It's the government saying, you do this because we know best. You're the stupid one. We know best. And that is what it really is. And it's just absolutely disgusting, because the Canada I knew was not like this. And it's been divided, but it's been divided by Justin Trudeau. And it's been divided. The division has got more and more over his term. As we all know, this has not just been a recent thing. This has been a thing that has been getting more and more prevalent as time has gone on, especially with the case of the cerveza sickness. And the health crisis and everything that's going on, again, was another opportunity for them to invoke all these emergency powers and, pass loads of things without having parliamentary approval, etc., etc. And it puts you on this slippery slope that we're on right now of, well, we'll just invoke the Emergencies Act because we got away with it with the cerveza sickness, so we'll just do it. It's not. I mean, we went through it, guys. You guys know now what constitutes as an emergency under the Emergencies Act, and it is not what Justin Trudeau has invoked it because of. He's demonizing these people, and it's just so shameful, so shameful. And the other thing is, I saw on Twitter, it is true that people who haven't had cannot leave this country. Okay? So just get that through, because how on earth can somebody who hasn't had this be a risk if they're leaving the country? And again, look around the world. Which countries don't allow you to leave? North Korea. China has restrictions. Are those the countries that you want to be in? Absolutely not. And, I went through and I was talking to a guy on Instagram today, and he lives in Kitchener-Waterloo. He's Serbian, originally from Serbia. He's got lots of Serbian friends. Hello, if you're watching this. But basically, he was saying that all his friends are moving back, and a lot of them have moved back because they've just seen the rights and freedoms disintegrate, and a lot of them are looking at the price of their house and they're going, hold on a second, this house now is worth $1.2 million, and I could sell that, pocket $800,000, head back to Serbia, buy a place for 100,000 euros. I don't know the prices, and then retire essentially if you're 50 years old. Job done. Who on earth is going to stay in Canada? And that is going to be a problem, I'm telling you. And I think that is really the reason. I think he isn't letting people out of this country because he's afraid of the tsunami of people that are going to leave. And I was even looking at the out-migration statistics at the weekend on the government's website. And they even say, because I was thinking about doing it for a future video, they have no clue, no accurate clue on how many people are leaving the country, but they said it's a significant risk. And just to give you an example, between 2006 and 2011, 400,000 Canadians left and went to the US. Just the US, 400,000. And that was when the population was smaller. So think about the population now as a percentage of how many people are immigrants. And I'm telling you, the Canada, it needs to be doing everything it can to market itself, to be a world leader, to be the champion of personal freedom and liberty, not being a dictatorship like this. This is I bet a lot of the people who come here from those, well, I know they are because they tell me all the time. I don't know what I'm on about, but a lot of people who've lived under these dictatorships, lived under communism, are drawing many, many parallels, many, many parallels. So the thing is, where do you want to be? And, a lot of people, no place is perfect. No place is perfect. But I'll tell you why I'm going to Mexico. And my end goal is either Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, but Mexico is going to be the first port of call, and we're going to probably invest in property down there. The property market's going down right now. But the thing is, Mexico, the reason why I think Mexico is a safe place is because a big portion of Mexico's economy is tourism. So they want to look after tourists. That's why there was never that's why they, I don't know if there was mandates for people getting in, but there isn't anymore. They're gone. So Mexico, as conservative as it is actually a decent place to go, because as a foreigner in Mexico, if you're going to Cabo or Playa del Carmen, Cancun, there's so many places. It's first world for a start off, decent internet. You've got all the big box stores that you've got here, Home Depot, Walmart. It's not that dissimilar, just speaking a different language, and the weather is much better and it's cheaper. But anyway, the thing is, they look after the tourists. They have police checkpoints around the tourist zones. The cartels know that they want the tourists to be looked after, because even they realize that they are a big part of the Mexican economy. So the thing is, as a foreigner in Mexico, you can kind of count that you're going to be looked after to a point. And the thing is, the healthcare there is also decent. It's much better than a place like Costa Rica or Panama, that the healthcare system is not too great. Mexico has world-class healthcare, actually, in different places. And, a lot of people would say, well, why don't you go to the US? And that's a possibility as well. I could be. But again, that would be temporary, because the US it's a healthcare situation. It's a joke with the healthcare there. The healthcare might as well be like the housing market here, because it is so expensive. And yeah, I don't want to, it's okay if you have a job and everything like that, and the healthcare service delivery that you get is good in America. Don't get me wrong, in most places, but the expense is massive, because again, it's over-regulated by the government. It's over-supported by the government, and the insurance and that whole... Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But anyway, guys, I'm just going to go through the comments here and see if there's anything you guys want to talk about. Let's see here. Out of here, BC, double down, more mandates. BC, out here in BC, they doubled down and put down more mandates. BC is commie heaven. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because, Alberta and BC have been on similar paths. In fact, BC at some times was ahead of here. BC, revert to means, great channel. BC sounds like Southern California, yeah. Yeah, then I would say California is more like Ontario, actually, but BC is kind of similar as well. It's exactly the same. Liberals, overpriced real estate, and commie left run rampant. Yeah. Tackers. My brother-in-law just moved out of Canada to Costa Rica. Nice. That's awesome. I hear from lots of people all the time who are leaving and moving. And that's what I want my message to be. Guys, do not sit on the fence here waiting for the crash. The crash will come inevitably. But trust me when I say, I know a lot of people are thinking we're going to wait for the housing market and the economy to crash, and then we're going to buy the houses and everything. When the economy crashes here, the collateral damage of that is going to be so large, you're not going to want to be here unless you have to be here. So if you have no ties, if you're young enough and you don't have the family ties, then I would just encourage you to get out of Canada, boycott Canada, come back when everything's collapsed and the recoveries happen, because after every collapse, there will be a recovery and a subsequent boom after that. Now, I think the time period that we're looking at is huge here. We're looking at a massive time period in terms of recovery. I think it will take decades because Canada will have to realize, and this is really going to be the job of the government, that it's going to have to change its ways in order to market itself to new immigrants. Because as an immigrant myself, when we looked at moving over here, one of the main reasons we moved over here was the cost of living. The cost of living was cheaper than back home and more freedom and liberty than there was back in England. Now that's the complete opposite way around. The cost of living is cheaper back home and there's more freedom and liberty back home. So if I had to make this decision again, it's like I said on my other channel, I would say no. And I would have focused on moving to the US instead, because it's more of a free place than Canada in certain states, I want to emphasize. So what else we got on here? Don't buy property, Luke. Rent property is like Mexican peso. It's not worth. Yeah. People buy properties in Mexico all the time. Well, yeah, that's the thing is they build a lot there. And what basically happened in Mexico was a fact that in 2021, loads of people flooded the area. This is what I've heard from realtors, because I've been in touch with realtors in Cabo, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, Panama, Costa Rica, to see what's going on. Because even if I'm moving down there, I don't want to buy when there's euphoria and when there's hysteria in the markets. And there was hysteria in 2021. And now Cancun is a prime example because they're building way more than Cabo. So obviously all this flood of people came in, and then they said, wow, we got to build. So they have been building like crazy there. And of course, that's completely slowed down to almost nothing now. And the prices are just going through the floor. So a two-bed condo was about $57,000 prior to this all starting. It went all the way up to nearly $119,000 for a two-bed, two-bath. And now it's down at around 60, 65. So that just goes to show how quick a market can go up and down when it's turned into a penny stock. And those markets like Windsor, Ontario, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, Niagara Falls, Cottage Country, those markets have been pumped in exactly the same penny stock sort of way, that they will have a huge, and it may be quicker than people expect, collapse. And with all the investors and everything being caught in collateral damage, It'll be bad. Let's see what else we got. Why not move to New Hampshire or a freedom-loving state in America? So I just covered this. So if you're new, but for the benefit of new people here, it's healthcare. Healthcare in the States is incredibly expensive. Even the co-pays are absolutely massive. It's not much of a problem at my age right now. It's not something I have to worry about. But long term, it's not a place that I would ever stay because of that fact that you can just get better healthcare, lower taxes in a different country. So why tie yourself to America? And America is expensive, you know. Goods, services are expensive in America. Inflation is really high. Now, don't get me wrong, in Mexico, inflation is high too. But if you're holding the majority of your capital in US dollars, then you'll probably, the inflation rate to you will probably be around 1 or 2%, something like that, because the peso and the US dollar, if you look at a chart, it's pretty impressive. Too much snow in New Hampshire. Yeah, that's one big thing. We're not doing the snow anymore. I can't do the snow. So it's let's see what this guy's saying. If you cash out of your primary residence and invest into 3 other properties, you'll grow your wealth faster. David Green, Bigger Pockets podcast. I mean, yeah, it depends where you're doing that. Like if you do that in Canada, then you've lost your mind as far as I'm concerned. You're leveraged to the hills, you're undiversified, and you put all your eggs in one basket. And if all those dominoes go down, then guess what? You'll lose your other house as well that you put on the line in the first place. So yeah, doing that and going to other countries and diversifying, not a bad idea, but you have to be careful because where property prices are right now is just, I mean, who's to say if interest rates rise, property prices, if they go down and people have, well, we know they have took out massive, they've used their homes as ATMs with home equity, even a lot of seniors lending money to their offspring to buy houses. That's happened as well. And it's just a shame. Now, interesting thing, whilst we're on here, guys, I want to get into this. I know this was about the Emergencies Act, but we've covered that. So you'll have to watch the replay of that. But basically, I got to find it. But there was an article. I'm not going to be able to find it. It was on my phone. So there was an article that came out. Who was it? I think it was the Daily Express in the UK that was saying that something like 40,000 people went into default on their mortgage in the UK between November and December. So 2 months. And they were also saying that 17,000 people also stopped paying their rent in that period due to the high energy costs. Okay, so it's already starting. Now, the figures we get in Canada are so outdated. Let me just check how outdated they are, because it's hilarious, guys. The statistics we get for defaults are so far behind that it would blow your mind. Trying to find it. I've got so many bookmarks on here. It's unbelievable. But anyway, the last thing, I can't find it. But anyway, the last thing they reported was August, I believe, in January. Or did they report Canadian Bankers Association faults? See if I can bring it up. Oh, yeah, I got it. Updated February 4th. This is November. Okay, so they posted February. They posted this February and they're talking about November. So that's how far we are behind. So we're going to be seeing material things happening before these all keep up. I mean, God, all the stimmy money and the handouts stopped really around October, November. So we're not really going to see any evidence of that. But I'm just going to quickly take a look here and see if anything did increase. So there was barely any mortgages in arrears in the month ending November. The highest number of arrears were in Alberta. But again, it's too early for that. But I think when we're looking at the data, so whenever it is in May, that's when we need to be looking at this data, because then we should start see that ticking up, people in default. But yeah, it is absolutely. I was thinking, let's show this one. James G, I was thinking based on your two channels, you will enjoy North Carolina, parts of Texas, Iowa, Tennessee, mountain towns, and Nashville. Nashville, I really want to go there. Tennessee, I really want to go there as well. North Carolina, I've heard, is fantastic, but just like a lot of places here in Canada, a lot of these places are in bubbles. The places with nice weather. Texas, especially, like Austin, house prices are just completely in a bubble. Arizona, the same thing. Arizona's pretty good, but the weather, again, is like, the summer is kind of like the winter here in terms of that you can only really go out at night. What else we got on here? Pigeon Forge is the night. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. I was thinking Arizona. We were there 3 years ago. Oh, wrong one. We were there 3 years ago. Absolutely fantastic. Tennessee is so awesome. Yeah, D Trent, I really need to get over there. But the thing is, there's just so many places. We were looking at going back to St. George in May, and we decided that it's probably better to just go to Mexico, because St. George is so expensive now. Even to just rent a place for a couple of weeks, it's an absolute fortune. And when you compare it to going to a place like Cancun for a couple of weeks, there's just no comparison. And the same goes for living. That's the funny thing. Same goes for living. Luke, what do you recommend for young people fresh out of uni? I have a remote job, so I'm lucky in that way. Well, it depends where you are, but get out of these Western countries. If you've got a remote job that you can do in any country, start thinking where you want to go to, because Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, there is loads of different places. Ecuador, there's loads of different places that you can go. Thailand, if you're into the Asian kind of culture. There's lots of. I'm a woman, and I heard Mexico is not safe alone. You need to go and explore, because I think your perception changes when you actually go there, and it depends where as well. Cancun, I don't really like it. It's too built up, and it doesn't feel as safe as other parts. But Playa del Carmen, that's just like a beautiful place. If you're going to these more small places like Cabo, Cabo has less crime than Miami, for example. So, and Orlando and Tampa and all these different places. So the crime, when you actually compare it, it's different, and it's mainly like pickpocket thieving and stuff like that. But yeah, depending on where you go in Mexico, Costa Rica is extremely safe. Panama is also very safe as well. There's a great place called Boquete in Panama. There's a lot of expats in that community. You have to remember, places like Cabo, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, it's all expats. There's barely any people from Mexico there, apart from the people that work who come into work there for the tourists. It's mostly just expat communities. And all the communities, like the condominium complexes and everything, are all gated, security and stuff like that. So if you've got a remote job, yeah, I would really be looking at those places depending on where you want to go, there's also places in Europe you can go to. But you know what? I don't think they're safer. I think we're misled a lot by people saying, oh, it's really safe here. Like it's really safe in Canada. No, it's not. Okay, so I live in a really nice area here in Calgary, and a guy got stabbed. It was a completely random attack just a year ago. A guy got stabbed in the park right next to our house. And that kind of knocked me back a bit, because I was like, holy, like I go in that park in the night, in the middle of the morning, I ride my bike around that park. And there has been a couple of occasions where I've seen really shady people around in that park. And funny story, there was actually some guy on the run, some famous like criminal on the run in that park at one point. But the fact is, it's just not as safe as we think it is here in Canada, especially Toronto. God, I mean, there was like a indoor conservatory garden right by all where the homeless shelters and everything were in Toronto. And that place, my God, I did not feel safe walking down there. But inherently, people always said to me, Jane and Finch, it's a terrible place. There is loads of crime and shootings there. I went there. People were really nice. Didn't have any problems. In fact, I went into one of the apartment buildings that was a low-income apartment building. And this is the hilarious things. I've been into a lot of those in Ontario. It's all immigrants that live in these places. And that's what makes me laugh when people think immigrants are coming over with like suitcases full of money. Yeah, there's a few people from China that are doing that. Don't get me wrong, and they're kind of they're made out like they're the ones that are doing all of this real estate stuff. It's not. Most immigrants, unfortunately, they don't come with much, and they're very poor, and they live in these low-income apartments, and that creates massive demand for affordable housing, but not even the type. This is for private places like BlackRock that are buying these apartment buildings, and then they're renting all out the units as affordable housing and whatnot. But anyway, come on. Toronto is super safe. You can't single out one-off instances and label the whole city bad. The whole city's not bad, but yeah, Toronto is, you can't label the whole city. Yeah, every city has good and bad parts. I'll agree with you on that. But Toronto is not, like if you were to say Mexico, well, let's say someplace in Mexico like Cancun versus Toronto, people would say Toronto is safer. And I would argue it's actually the opposite way around, and you'll feel much safer down there as well. It's just whatever you're used to. I'll have to look into getting my money out of Canadian banks. That's a big worry of mine too. Yeah, I mean, I'm well diversified, and I'm lucky in the fact that I have UK citizenship. And if you have citizenship from another country, then that's great, because you can establish an account there, and it just makes things easy because you can always use that money when you go back as well. And, for me anyway, the UK banks have a lot more options when it comes to opening bank accounts with no fees and stuff. Canadian banks are just crooks, and they make most of their money through selling mortgages. But in England, like I have a account in the Isle of Man that's in Norwegian krone, and that account, I don't pay any fees on that. I don't pay any fees on that at all. And I've had that account since 2015. So, and that was one thing that really saved me, because when Brexit, think about this, guys. So when we were coming to Canada initially, I was getting the job offers and stuff around the time that Brexit was going on. And I knew that the risk, if Brexit happens, to the pound was huge because of the volatility in the pound that had been going on. And I started researching which currencies were most stable, and I was torn between the franc and the krone, and I ended up going for the krone. And that was because I looked at the long-term price chart, and I looked at the volatility, and I thought, yeah, it's not volatile at all. And that's why I opened the account. And now this was stupid of me and very naive at the time. And I was lucky, and I would never say anybody to do this. I put all of my money, I went all in on Norwegian krone. Now, had it gone the other way with the Brexit vote, I could have lost quite a lot of money as well. Let's not forget. So I think I was kind of naive to do that, but it worked out. In the end, I made about $20,000 from doing that. So that goes to show that, having all your eggs in one basket in form of a currency, I don't think that's a good idea. Personally, for me, I like to have gold, silver, because they're the insurance policy on the money I have here in Canada. Because if the Canadian dollar is badly affected, then the gold versus the Canadian dollar price is going to go through the roof. So gold is always a great thing to have. And I've been banging that drum since I started that channel. And I'm not a crypto guy. A lot of people peddle crypto. I'm just not into that. I think it's in a bubble, too much frothiness. Don't want to get involved with it. And my trading account is in USD. Yeah, that's another way you can diversify as well. I have a lot of US dollar trading accounts as well. And the thing is, that's a good way of diversifying, even if you're just buying US stocks, because making sure, obviously, you're buying decent, undervalued companies, not overvalued companies and stuff like that. But providing you're buying the right things, it's a great thing having US dollars as well. And that was one of the things we recently did, which was a funny story, which I won't get into, but and that was a fiasco with the bank. And it really made me realize how these Canadian banks, they just do not want you they don't want that money going outside the big five banks. I'll never forget when I went into my local Scotia branch back in 2018, and I said, I want 20 grand cash because I was buying a car, I think, at the time. And they said no. They said no. They said, we'll have to order it in. And I said, okay, order it in. And they said, can't we just give you a banker's draft for that? Why do you want all the cash? They started asking me all these questions. And I said, I'm not paying for a draft. Because I'll just take the cash. Because the funny story was, guys, I was taking the cash because I didn't want to pay for a stupid draft. That's how cheap I am. But anyway, they ended up giving me the draft for free because they don't have the cash, guys. And cash is the constraint on the banking system. If we all went to the ATM, like I'm talking a lot of us here in Canada, went to the ATM and withdrawed just like $1,000 each, the whole financial system would collapse because that cash is a constraint on the banking system and they don't hold a lot of it. When they're creating credit, they're creating that of thin air. That is new money. And I won't go too much into that. It will spoil the video. But the video I've got on the board, which I got to film at the moment, is called Is It Immigration? And a lot of you guys would have watched the videos from before anyway that I've done. But immigration is this immigration nonsense about the housing market. I figured it would be best done on a whiteboard because people need to see that. It's just ridiculous. There's still a lot of people who peddle immigration is causing the housing prices. Exactly. Usually there's a drop in too much demand, not enough supply, and population is increasing each year. Oh, so this is talking exactly about what I was on about there. So the thing is, guys, Is It Immigration? That video is going to be incredibly interesting for you, Chronic One Chills, because it isn't. to put it simply. And I show you all the data that backs up my point. Population, loads of different things. And we even go down the path of comparing it to our good old friend, USA, where revert to means and a bunch of you are. Because in the USA, the fact is that it's very similar. So you can't tell me that the housing prices are the way they are because of the population, because the housing prices in the USA would be in exactly the same thing. So it's, I think most people, Darcy, hello, Darcy. I think most people in Canada have no clue what to do in the event of a bank run or a currency crisis. Even I'm trying to learn what to do. Well, I'll tell you what happened in the UK, because Northern Rock went bust. So when Northern Rock went bust, there was a bank run by everybody. But the government was saying at the time, and this just goes to show nothing has changed, guys. Nobody trusts what the government what the government says. The government said you don't have to go to the bank and withdraw all your money, because we are going to take over Northern Rock, and these banks will become public institutions, and then you'll get your money. And basically that did happen. And nobody actually lost money, unless it was an account of somebody who was deceased. Then unfortunately they did lose money, and there was money lost in that respect, believe it or not. I know somebody who lost money because one of somebody, a relative who was deceased, and they were trying to access the account. They couldn't, because there was a certain time frame to get your money out. And that's what will probably happen here, I'm thinking, is the banks will go into public ownership. Most of the banks in the UK ended up in public ownership. Lloyds, I think Barclays was the only one that didn't. No, even Barclays, yeah, because I think so anyway. But yeah, most of the banks went into public ownership. So it's a scary thing to have happen, though, because I don't trust the government. Do any of you guys trust the government? Because I certainly don't trust the government. So if they're coming out, if Trudeau is coming out there and he's saying, hey guys, don't worry, everything's fine, your money is safe, then I know we've got issues. And just to attune to what I said on the weekend's video, you know, back in 2017, Home Capital Group had to be rescued by the Ontario government, and they were a tiny fraction of mortgage lending in Canada that went flip up. And that happened as a result of the pullback, just the correction in prices that happened after the run in 2016. So now you imagine the run we've had is even bigger. The amount of capital took out by people is even larger. So then it just goes to show that there is going to be there's more capital at stake now. So if prices go down 20%, the amount of stress that puts on the banking system, there will be a banking crisis. And it will probably happen the way it happened in the US, as in it'll be, it's like musical chairs for all the banks. And then all of a sudden, all the banks decide we're turning off the music, and the Bank of Nova Scotia is holding the bags of crap. And that basically happens. And then guess what? They get into trouble. But the fact is, they've all been doing it. They've all been just lending way, way too much. What Canadians don't understand is, if you come from a country that has strict lending practice, like the UK had incredibly strict lending practices after the GFC, because all the banks were owned by the government. So when we were looking at getting a loan for an investment property way back, when prices had tanked, and it was around 2012, I want to say 2012, 2013, when we were looking at that, the banks did not want to lend to you. In fact, they were laughing at you. You came in there, you had no assets, and you were asking to buy an investment property. They didn't want to lend. They wanted people to sign on as guarantors who own their house outright. So put your own house up so that if the loan goes bad, they're going to take your house. So it's just nuts, really. When lending conditions change, that's when you really see a change. And in 1989, if Roberto's on there, he can chime in on this. But he was telling me that when the crash happened in the 90s in Canada, that was literally just the banks deciding that the risk had gotten too great, and they started peeling back on the lending, because even the banks might think, wait a second here, there is a lot of risk. So we're going to, start actually looking into whether people have got jobs. Because I've heard from people who work in the compliance department of the can't get my words out, compliance departments of these banks, and they all say the same thing, that they are a disaster. So the compliance is making sure that they're abiding by all these regulations set out by, it's not the FCA here, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, it's called the FCA, but I don't know what it is here, whoever regulates the banks, same thing. So, and the fact is, one other warning thing that I saw the other day is bespoke tranche opportunity. You remember the Big Short movie? Well, at the end of that movie, they say in 2015, they started selling this product that was a CDO, and it was called bespoke tranche opportunity. Well, go and Google that after this stream, because when the interest rates went down in 2020, everybody's searching for a yield, and that pushes people further and further out the risk curve. That's why we saw all the retail investors explode into stock trading, into crypto, all these different things. Well, it's the same with institutions and hedge funds who are looking for some type of yield, some type of investment. Derivatives are a quadrillion market, the biggest in the world, bigger than the stock market, the bond market. But anyway, it was trillions of dollars in these CDOs that had been sold in 2008. Well, there was something like 800 billion done in 2021. $800 billion of these bespoke tranche opportunities. And there was 230 million, I think it was, of synthetic bespoke tranche opportunities. So you need to go watch The Big Short, because Margot Robbie explains that a lot better than I do. I can tell you that much. But I'm telling you, the work, I couldn't have thought it, but the same stuff is going on. So it's like a repeat. It's like we're on repeat again. It's like we're repeating 2008 all over again. So even the US, that I thought maybe wasn't as exposed, is turning out to be very exposed because of all these derivatives that have been created on the back of the housing market. So the thing is, a lot of people have gone all in, especially in Canada, on housing. And yeah, I mean, I don't think the future bodes well for them, to be honest with you. And generally, economically, I just think we've got to be looking at outside Canada, because when this crisis hits, unless you're in like healthcare, even government services, I think that will be affected. Government services, I think it will be cut significantly. Austerity will happen. Even healthcare will be cut. But if you're in like healthcare, dental, stuff like that, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, those jobs you're pretty much guaranteed to keep hold of. But a lot of people don't realize how their job is linked to real estate. Even the job I do in IT, a lot of the jobs that we've done during the cerveza sickness have been for construction companies and different things like that. Once that all dries up, how much is left? And all the lost money as a result of that when those companies go bankrupt. So you just have to remember that these things are always operating in cycles. Canada has had a bit of a longer cycle, and that was mainly due to them not having the dot-com bubble, and they didn't have that initial bubble after the dot-com bubble. They didn't have the explosion in housing prices that happened in the US. It really started in around 2005 and then to now. So it's insane. Nobody knows how far it's going to go, but it's going to wipe out a lot of wealth. It's going to wipe out a lot of companies. It's going to create a lot of unemployment. And I don't want that for any of you guys. I don't want you guys to be unemployed. I want you guys to be successful. And that's why I'm advocating that, hey, you look at, even if you love the country, I love the country too, when things get better, would I move back? Yeah, definitely. If freedom and liberty is something that is still being valued, who knows what it'll look like in 10 years if the liberals get in. But yeah, USA, but leaving for the UK, someday husband born there. One of my friends moved back to the UK, and that was pretty sad because he was a really nice guy. I got on with him really well. And he moved back, and I was surprised because funny thing is, his kids were Canadian, his wife was Canadian, and basically his son went to the UK. He was just 18 or whatever, and he went there to do an apprenticeship. And he basically said, I don't want to, the cerveza sickness started and everything like that. And even it really screwed him around over there, but he managed to get a part-time job. But even he said, I don't want to come back. I like it here, which I was surprised. The UK, I think it's difficult to go from Canada to the UK, to be honest, if you value the open spaces a lot. I could never go back there just because of that. But again, it depends where in the UK, because where I was from was very condensed, but I've worked all over the UK, and I know like the Southwest, Cornwall, Devon, Bristol, Bath, beautiful areas of the country, just so much beauty there. And they're totally different to places like the Midlands, where I'm from, London, the Southeast. London and the Southeast, I love London, don't get me wrong. Like London, it makes me laugh when people call Toronto a world-class city. It's like, have you traveled to have you been to Berlin? Have you been to Munich? Have you been to London? Because these places have amazing public transportation. They are vast in opportunities. Toronto is mainly based around the housing market and the financial services sector that goes with the housing market. So it's not very diversified. And I think we saw in that crystal ball, when all the layoffs happened and everything, it's like I said, I think that was really telling of what's going to happen in the future. And Toronto was one of the worst place hit for layoffs, if you remember. Calgary and Toronto were the worst places. I think they had 20% unemployment at one point. But that was a preview of the weakness in those economies, because if you think about it, that shows you how little money those companies had to keep operations going, and how they were operating. It showed you. So Toronto and Ontario, I think Toronto is going to really struggle. And the unemployment rate is already showing that. Even the corrupt unemployment rate is showing that, because unemployment in Ontario actually overtook Alberta for the first time in God knows how long, after last month. So Toronto, hey, watch it. Hello from Toronto. Yeah, there's got to be gold and silver. Yeah, that's too right. I'm just going through your comments, seeing what. I was one of the many who Canada kicked out, said did not need my nursing skills, left country, never looked back. Where did you go, Barbara? Because, yeah, it's just, I don't think that they value nursing and healthcare as much as they do in other places. The UK was the same, though, to be honest. Like, they don't value healthcare workers at all. They did the clap, which was just kind of a joke, and I thought was just a real insult, actually, to the profession, because instead of giving them a clap, give them a massive pay rise, because they are so underpaid. They rely on immigrants again to come in and do the job, and now they're leaving the EU. Well, times have changed, guys, and now they're really starting to see that needle turn, where they're having massive labor shortages in certain sectors, because they haven't got the people to do the work. But yeah, it's if you go to America and you're in healthcare, you're sorted. I mean, doctors are earning millions of dollars. I mean, they're not doing badly here in Canada. I think consultants in Ontario are earning like $300,000, but you've got to pay for your office staff, your office. It's not as simple as just take home pay as that. But in the US, they're earning millions. And that's why I wouldn't live in the US. I mean, it's not exactly I mean, don't get me wrong. The healthcare service, the delivery is good and everything like that. Yeah, mate, I know. Yeah, this is one of my friends here who moved over. He saw my other channel and he was moving pre-Cerveza sickness and everything like that. And unfortunately, I know it's been a tough journey for you, but hang in there. And like I said, you need to go to the US, man, because with your skill set, you're in the wrong place. I know that's got to be a daunting thing to even think about, because moving to a new country and then moving to another country. But trust me, the more you go on, the harder it becomes to leave. The ties become more and more, the possessions, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's difficult. But yeah, your skill set would be way more valued in the US, as you know. And I'm sure you'll end up there anyway. Like most good people, they leave Canada. Most good people leave Canada because Canada won't pay them enough. The economy doesn't support them enough. The cost of living's too much. It would be a different story, wouldn't it, if we were talking about housing prices in places like Toronto. It was like $500,000 for a detached house, or $400,000. Be a different story then for people. A lot of people would definitely want to move to Toronto. But the thing is, not at these insane prices. That is going to be putting off so many people, and we're not going to see this for time down the road. So it's I did love. Oh, so you went to the US? Yeah, USA sucks. Yeah, I mean, I've got family all over the US, and they tell me the healthcare system is so broken. It's unbelievable because it's a for-profit system. There's a balance between public and profits. At the end of the day, it's got to be highly regulated, but I think it's got to be a combination of private and public. But again, it's just about being regulated properly, and that's what they did all wrong in the US, and they just chuck money at it, the government, hoping that it will go away. They spend the most money, that government, on healthcare out of any government. Yeah, I've heard this. Apparently, housing in Hamilton is more expensive than LA. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I know. It's more expensive than LA. You could buy 2 houses in the Bahamas for that much. It is just absolutely insane, guys. Absolutely insane. But yeah. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave this right here. This has been a pleasure. It's been great talking to all you guys. We've had, I think, nearly 150 people on at one point. So it's been incredibly good. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to watch the first part of this live stream. I'm glad we did that before and took all the questions at the end, because it's been fun. But yeah, it's... Yeah, I'm just seeing what's coming in here. Housing in Hamilton more expensive than LAX. Yeah, what a joke. Yeah, I know. You can't believe it. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this stream. I will see you in the next one. Smash that like button before you go. I was doing it over there. Hit that like button, because it's going to get this video out. It's going to get that algorithm going. YouTube loves that like button being hit. More interactions, the better. Comment, like. I read all the comments. I reply to as many of them as I can. Support those truckers. Yeah, farmers and truckers are our lifeline. Totally agree. Support those truckers. Always stand up for your rights. Always stand up for freedom and liberty. Hang in there, guys. And we are going to support those guys. And we are on the right side of history, guys. Peace, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.